Welcome to Chapter 13. You have made it. This is the last chapter we're doing in this course. It's the last chapter of your book. And this chapter is on religion in the 21st century. I'm going to take you through a few broad concepts during these videos, and I suspect we'll keep it relatively short. We probably won't use the full 30 minutes this time. These are some things that I think are important when you're thinking about religion as it exists in the 21st century. There's certainly ideas that wouldn't have been that useful to you at the beginning of this course, I don't think. They require you to have the body of knowledge that hopefully you've accumulated through the readings and through these videos over the course of this semester. So, we're going to talk about these in no particular order, go through them, and I'll try to connect them to some of the traditions we've talked about already. But I want to stress that these are general, these are broad, these are something that is true of most, if not all, of the religions that exist today. And I also want to stress that even though we're talking about religion in the 21st century, that doesn't mean these things haven't been problems in the past as well. It just means that today, in the 21st century, we're dealing with them, and the religions that exist today have to deal with them in whatever way they choose. So, topic number one, the first thing I want to talk to you about is the fact that there is no majority religion in the world today. That means that there's no religion that most people practice. Nobody's got 51% of the world's population. The big ones are Christianity, that's about a third of the people on earth. Islam is about a fifth of the people on earth, and then it goes down from there through Hinduism and Buddhism and Sikhism and so forth. But nobody comes close to the majority of the world's people. So what this means, well, it depends on where you're looking at it from. There's some question of what this means in terms of a divine plan. So say, for example, you believe in a tradition that says God or the gods or some force, the Tao, something, is at work, is active, is interacting with humans, is fiddling with history, is shaping the world in accordance with it or their desire. Well, then you have to question what exactly it means that no matter what you believe, no matter what religion you practice, most of the world doesn't practice that religion. Does that mean your religion is failing, is not doing what God or the gods want? Does that mean that God screwed up, that your religion isn't what it's supposed to be because of some divine mistake? Does that mean that there's some sort of intentional plan by which your religion is a minority religion? Because it is. No matter what religion you practice, it's a minority. Even if you're atheist or agnostic, you're still in a minority. Everybody is. If the world had 99% Shinto practitioners, then it would be very easy to say, well, clearly the kami want us to worship the Shinto way. But the world isn't like that. And so, from a divine point of view, from a supernatural sort of vantage, this is problematic. It means that somebody's screwing up if we're all supposed to be doing the same thing. Or it means we're not supposed to be doing the same thing. And that takes us to the second implication of this. What does this mean in terms of human responsibility? There's two major answers to this. There are those people who say, well, most people on earth do something different than me. That means most people on earth are wrong, and I need to correct them. And this is the idea behind all sorts of religious practices that are based on the idea of changing minds, turning people to your tradition, converting people. They're not practicing my religion now. They will be better off if they do, so I need to do what I can to make them practice my religion, to fix them. And this has been done in all sorts of ways throughout history. Today, for the most part, it's done relatively peacefully, but throughout history there have been all sorts of monstrous things that people have done to try to convert other people, so forth. Or, the other possibility is God or the gods, whatever, intentionally made the world this way so that we could learn something, so that we could recognize something in the diversity of the world's religions. And this is something that Hinduism sort of implies. Certainly universalist traditions like Baha'i and Unitarianism overtly recognize this. They say, listen, there's a God, and that God intentionally put all this stuff out here for us so that we could learn from it. Not because one's right and the others are wrong. They're all here, they're all from God, and they're all for us to learn from. So our responsibility is to study them, figure them out, see what they mean, see why they're here. And those are dramatically different interpretations, right? Those are polar opposites in terms of how you want to deal with this issue. All right, so moving on, let's talk about a second issue facing religions in the world today, and that is the idea of inclusion versus exclusion. Meaning, what do you let into your religion, and what do you keep out? And this usually happens on the scale of the individual, although it can certainly happen in terms of groups too. Certainly, women have been excluded from some important sorts of aspects of religion. There's still a lot of world religions that say women cannot practice the tradition in the same way that men can. They cannot as fully participate. The largest form of Christianity says this. Roman Catholicism says women do not have the same spiritual capabilities as men, or if they do, they're not supposed to use them. Men can be priests, men can be bishops, men can be cardinals, men can be popes, but women cannot. That's not what they're here for. Their role is different. And that's off-putting to a lot of people, right? That's something that can drive people away from traditions, of course. So, if you don't want those people driven away from your tradition, you just flip it. You include them. You say, yeah, just kidding. Everybody can be in our religion. Everybody can practice it. Everybody can participate. And everybody can be a priest or a bishop or things like that, or whatever tradition we're talking about. But the problem with that is, once you have a club that everybody's allowed into, it's not a very exclusive club anymore. It's just kind of the thing everybody's doing. So religions tend to walk a delicate line between letting people in and keeping people out. And this line changes over time for religions that survive. Certainly there are some religions that have just disappeared because they didn't adapt. But that can be very complicated for the people involved, because that's something we probably haven't stressed enough in this class. Remember that every religion in the world, it's just people. It's just people who are alive in the world, like you and me, trying to make it work. And it's also organizations, right? A church, a faith, a denomination, it's an organization. And it usually has leaders, and it usually has management, and it usually has people who are responsible for implementing policy and so forth. And so the people, the individuals, the humans who have to make these kinds of decisions on a day-to-day basis, they're in a delicate place. If you change too much, you lose the core of the religion. If you don't change enough, the religion becomes irrelevant and disappears. And that's something that certainly we see today. It's very true with homosexuality as well. Homosexuality is one of the biggest areas where this is being debated, with people saying, okay, can you be a blank, whatever? Can you be a Christian and be homosexual? Can you be Jewish and be homosexual? Okay, say you can. Well, can you be a leader then? Can you be a leader and be homosexual? Or can you be in charge? Could you be the head of things and be homosexual, and so forth? And of course, different groups are finding different answers to these sorts of things. And when they do, they typically piss off some group or another within the tradition. This is something that's always changing. It's not unique to the 21st century. It's been here 1,000 years ago, and it'll be here 1,000 years from now. People trying to decide who can and can't be part of a tradition without losing the core of what's supposed to be going on. And kind of related to this is our third topic. Well, I mean, all of these are related to one another. But directly related to this is the third thing I want to talk to you about. So 1, we've talked about no majority religion. 2, we've talked about the idea of inclusion and exclusion. 3, I want to talk about the idea of boundaries. Where do religions draw the boundaries around themselves? One of the ones that has been discussed a lot in the last few years in the United States is the relationship between religions and government, the church and state. In America, we tend to say there is a boundary between religion and government. But we're kind of in the middle on this question. We have the word God on our money, and we swear on Bibles, and we speak to courts, and so forth. There are other countries, many in Europe, some place like France, for example, that is completely secular, where religion does not have any part in government. It is not supposed to have any part in government, and it would be a problem if it did. And there are other countries, Saudi Arabia, for example, where religion is supposed to be part of government, where government is supposed to respond to religion, where laws are supposed to be rooted in religion, where religion is supposed to be a very defining aspect of politics and government. And that boundary doesn't exist at all. Finding that balance is tricky, and what's even more tricky is, in a global community, getting governments who define that boundary differently to interact. All right, I'll meet you at video 2.